Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of East Got Game, where we give you the X's, the O's, and the insights of the NBL One East competition. Thanks for joining us tonight live on YouTube and possibly Instagram, but definitely Facebook. Instagram, again, is not working for us, unfortunately. But remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at East Got Game, or you can continue to find us and our episodes on your preferred streaming platforms. On this week's episode, we'll be covering our NBL One East headlines from round 11, our East Got Game of the week between the Illawarra Hawks and the Inner West Bulls from the men's competition. And we'll be finishing our episode tonight with a very special interview with one of the absolute staples. Well, I can't say staples, but a true standout of NBL One East, certainly in line with our homecoming theme of the 2025 season. But let's first do a check-in. Lockie, how are you faring down there?
I am doing spectacularly, Squin. It's been strangely warm today, which has been quite nice after a very cold evening at the Shark Tank on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah. Does your stadium tend to be cooler inside than it is actually outside?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
What's with that? Now, I'm no architect, but what's with that? Because Breakers Indoor Sports Stadium at the Crusaders home court is exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't know. Tin sheds don't have great insulation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I wonder as well if a lot of stadiums are finding the same issues.
Yes, let's just say I'm glad that my game this coming weekend is on the Sunday afternoon at Comets and not the Saturday night.
Oh, is Comets a little bit warmer on the inside?
Well, no, just the fact it'll be during the day and not at night is all I'm happy for.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But yeah, round 11 of NBL One East has just been done and dusted, and it was another very eventful round in the competition. Take us through the headlines for the men's competition, Lockie.
Well, I think how can you go past a game that went to triple overtime between Maitland and Manly up there at the Federation Centre? Two teams who are right in that mix that we always talk about, right there, right on the cusp of finals, both all in that 6-8, 7-8, 6-7 grouping. And yeah, Manly able to just about pull it out after Maitland had a chance to win it with the last shot of the game. It was 92 apiece after Zach Kumble made both of his free throws. And, they held on to get it to overtime. And then overtime one came and went. Billy Parsons got the game-tying basket just at the end of the first overtime. And then young Ollie Hammond hit his free throws down the stretch in the second overtime before finally the elastic snapped and Manly were able to pull away to a 7-point victory, 126 to 119. So to anyone who just glanced at the scoreline, they were playing defense. They just had to play for an extra 15 minutes over everyone else.
That was my initial thought when I saw the scoreline. Huge numbers. And I was like, was everyone just shooting the best game of their life, or was no one playing defense? It was only until I clicked on the box scores on the NBL One app that I saw it was triple overtime. Surely people were cramping during this triple overtime.
Have to be. I mean, Billy Parsons, who we all know came back early from a serious injury and should probably only just be getting back to playing now, played 45 minutes, had 32 points and 17 rebounds. I mean, you have to feel for guys like Mason Bragg, 27, 14, 8, and 3 steals, and then Isaiah Lee putting up a 30-piece. Isaiah Lee played 49 minutes and 55 seconds of basketball, 30-piece, and, that's just so, backing up from that. But, Billy's played 45 minutes, dropped 32 and 17, and doesn't even get to walk away with the win.
Yeah, that is huge. That is huge. That is certainly a highlight and a milestone of the season as well as a whole. And just looking at this log jam that is the men's competition, Manly are now 7th place with a win-loss record of 7-7. The North Bears are above them in 6th with the same win-loss record of 7-7, but ahead on for and against points by 0.10. Ridiculous.
It's tight, and I'm pretty sure they play each other this weekend.
They sure do. They sure do. Just adding to this historic rivalry between Manly and North, it just gets better and better.
Well, Manly play Norths, who they are level with, and Newcastle, who are one spot behind them on the table this weekend.
Yeah, Manly play Newcastle first.
This could be the weekend that almost puts Manly in the absolute box seat for a final spot, if they can get both wins in both.
Yeah, and they've certainly fought their way to get there as well. But yeah, they're North are 7-7, playing Manly next week, as you said. Manly are 7-7, playing Newcastle first. Newcastle are 8th with a win-loss record of 7-8. So only because it's only actually because they've played the extra game and that extra game was a loss, because their points percentage is 100.30. So they had the same record of 7-7, they actually would have been in 6th position.
Yep.
And then 9th is the Central Coast Crusaders. Their win-loss record is 7-8. And they still would have been where they are in 9th position with their points percentage. So, yeah, it's chaos between the North, Manly, and Newcastle men's teams.
And you talk about that Crusaders for and against. They're minus 41 for the season, and they lost a game by 46 on the weekend. They'd be in positive differential if they'd won that game.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Oh, that, yeah. Had they played the way that they played on Sunday and they played that way on the Saturday, we'd be having a different conversation.
We certainly would.
What other headlines have you got for us from round 11?
Well, I think on the women's side, well, aside from Christina Moore dropping 47, which was amazing, the Hills Hornets providing a little bit, if not a lot, of nuisance value, because they came into the Shark Tank and they were up 17 with a quarter to play, and then Sienna Clark went bang, bang, bang. 3 threes in the space of 90 seconds to end the game in pretty much there. It was a 26-point game with 9 minutes to play. But then they went off and beat Hornsby the very next day to drop Hornsby to 6-8. And they're now in that logjam in the Women's League, where Maitland and Inner West and Canberra sitting on 7 wins, and then Bankstown, Comets, and Hornsby are now all on 6 wins. Hornsby sitting where they were on the table, 6-7, coming up against a team that's 5-9. They would have, been optimistic of a victory. But Hills, great form. I'm not sure at 5-10 that there's just enough wins left for them to get to a final spot. But boy, howdy, are they being quite annoying for some other teams, because they sent Sutherland to 4-10, and same deal. Do Sutherland have enough games left to pick up enough wins to make finals now? So, yes, Hills, great performance, great outing. Loved watching Elizabeth Smith. They had 6 players in double figures in both games, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think in the Sutherland game, those scores range from 14 to 19. So it really was spread. So, yeah, great work by the Hills Hornets. Great weekend. And, yeah, they might not make finals, but, always good to end your season on a high. So if they maintain this form, something to build on for next year, regardless of how their final standing lands.
Well, we do often say here on Eastcock Game that if you're unable to make finals, at least stay competitive and perhaps ruin someone else's finals hopes.
Exactly. They still got to play. They still play Inner West in a couple of weeks. They play Comets. Who else do they play? They play Newcastle. I think Newcastle will probably make finals regardless of that result somehow. But yeah, they've got a few games there that they can definitely win, and yeah, like you said, maybe ruin someone's season or beat everybody, and the logjam remains.
Yeah, Newcastle Falcons women back on the top of the table, win-loss record of 13-2 after defeating the North Bears on the weekend. They play Manly women as well on the week, coming up in round 12. Manly have just successfully reached a 10-game winning streak, despite I think based on the NBL One East socials headlines, Alex Delaney is currently, I think, celebrating her 30th birthday overseas with her family, and Taylor Wirtz has seen some limited minutes, I think the headline said, or perhaps not shooting as well as she had in the previous rounds, but still Manly able to get 10 wins in a row. Now another big test is coming for them ahead this weekend against the Falcons. Interestingly though, Manly are third, win-loss record of 12-2, and have the highest points percentage. So that's probably going to be in their favor at towards the end of the season, I'd say.
Definitely. And I mean, they can wrap up splits this weekend against Newcastle and North because they play them both. So not only could this weekend decide a lot on the table, it could decide, if there do become tie breaks, who wins those.
Yeah, for sure. Especially as you mentioned the game before, Maitland versus Inner West, 6th versus 7th, equal win-loss record. The Stingers just ahead due to points percentage. Quite a healthy points percentage, though, 7.20% ahead of Inner West Bulls. But yeah, that result is going to be really interesting. Obviously, Christina Moore, all eyes on her after that 47 piece. So we'll have to keep an eye on those results for round 12.
Certainly will. It's getting right down to the nitty-gritty.
That's right. Any other headlines from NBL One East for after round 11, Lockie?
Alex Higgins-Titcher, made in the East, no longer an East man, but going to the Summer League with the Golden State Warriors. That's pretty big.
And it was just announced as well, just before we started recording tonight or streaming tonight, that Bawali Bales from the Sydney Comets is also headed to the Summer League, suiting up for the New York Knicks.
Well, there we go.
Huge.
Well, that's huge for the Comets playing Sutherland this weekend.
Yes. Blessing and a curse is the Summer League and having talented individuals in your team. That's because right. Dave O'Hickey's already headed to Summer League as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
But look, we love to see our NBL One East talent going international, because wherever they go in their career and in the world, they'll always be representing the East. And those sentiments will actually be echoed in our guest interview later on in the show, which we think you're really, really going to enjoy. But are we ready to get into our EastGOC game of the week, Lockie?
We certainly are, and it was an absolute humdinger, Squin.
Interesting that you see it as a humdinger. My opinion may differ.
Well, down the stretch, it was exciting.
It was. Yeah, it was. Yes. It was very exciting. My initial... The game that we chose to review this week was the Illawarra Hawks men versus the Inner West Bulls men at the Snake Pit. Now, realizing we have already reviewed a game of the Illawarra Hawks men, we haven't watched the Inner West Bulls. They've had quite an up and down season. They've had a change in head coach as well halfway through, with Terry Johnson now coming in. I don't think I saw an official announcement, but I certainly recognized him on the sideline.
No, I don't. No, because the first time I saw anything about it was when I saw his name for 2 games in a row on the live stats. Was when it clicked for me.
I don't think there was an official announcement from the club either, thanking their previous coach on socials either.
There you go.
So, nonetheless, very turbulent season for the Inner West Bulls men. This one, it did go down to the wire, like you said. The Illawarra Hawks with the win, 98-95. Looked like a great crowd at the Snake Pit as well, as you can come to expect from the Snake Pit. But this was a type of game in the end for me where if you wanted to be entertained, it was entertaining. But if you wanted to watch a game as a basketball nerd and get into the nitty-gritty of what defense they're playing, what offense they're playing, and try and analyze it as we do for our weekly reviews, it was probably not the game for you.
I'm glad you feel that way, Squin, because I did have some times moments watching this game where I was like, what am I noting down here?
Yeah, what am I learning? What am I gaining for this? It was almost like a reality TV show where everything has a purpose. Sometimes we just want to sit down after a hard day and watch a reality TV show and not have to think but be entertained. And this is the kind of game this was for me. The more I watched some particular plays that we'll get into, the more frustrated I became.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. But still, I mean, it wasn't the worst game that I've watched. It was perhaps I just did have high expectations for this game, given the talent that was on the court. But it was one where I was like, I left wanting more. Fair.
I mean, yes, it was very exciting. Lots happening, but it was all a bit, it was a lot on the fly.
It was a lot on the fly. So tell me some of your notes from the first quarter.
Well, I mean, you can't go past the start where the threes just absolutely flew from both sides, and they were hitting as well. I mean, Ramon Cow was out there as the Comets commentator, I have nightmares still about this man's ability to shoot the ball sometimes, what he's done to Comets and a bit to Sutherland. But I think once those threes start to dry up, it felt like Illawarra kind of settled into the game a bit quicker than Inner West. Kobe McDowell-White had a couple of really good moves. I'm still not sure how he got that first time where he blew past Max Clark. I'm still not exactly sure how he dribbled the ball, because it was very nice to watch, but I'm still not sure how the physics of the ball actually getting through occurred.
Was that off a handoff around the 3-minute mark in the first quarter?
Yeah, it was the one where he it was the really shifty one. Yeah. And honestly, there were a couple of times where I was wondering how Inner West were going to guard Kobe McDowell-White, because there were times where it looked really easy for him to get to the rack. CJ Moran, and this will be a point probably for every quarter of the game, particularly defensively. He got into the game more offensively later, but just defensively, setting screens. Obviously, his tips from if he can't grab the ball, the man could play in the ruck, because he always gets the tip where it needs to go. When I say from the first possession of the game, I mean it, because he literally set an off ball to get Todd Blanchfield open in the very first possession of the game for Illawarra's opening basket. But as things moved on, Bulls definitely finished the first quarter stronger, and they trailed by 7. And Illawarra, I'm sorry, I have to say, you should have led this game by 12 or 14 after a quarter, because your final minute of the first quarter was not good. They had 2 turnovers to end the quarter. One was pushing for a late basket and turned it over and gave Inner West enough time. 30-18 became 30-23 like that off those couple of turnovers, and Andrew Swanson getting a good drive to the rack to finish off. And we'll talk a lot more about Andrew Swanson as the game goes on. But I definitely thought it was Illawarra early, and they should have led it by a lot more.
Yeah, for me in the first quarter, opening this game with, I counted 7 3-pointers in the first quarter between both teams. Todd Blanchfield with 2, Ramon Cow with 2, McDowell White with 2, and Leslie from Illawarra with 1. That's as quick as I could do it. I went back to the shot chart to double check as well. Cute, like that set us up for a really entertaining, high octane game. Everyone was ready to shoot, but I think both teams very quickly settled for those shots. Very quickly, Inner West Bulls stopped any kind of dribble penetration. Not a lot of movement off the ball. It looks like I couldn't tell if they were running any particular sets in the half court. This is honestly just first impressions. Couldn't see that they were running any particular sets in their half court offense, which meant the way I saw it was that they'd try motion for a little bit. It would quickly break down. That would then rely on someone going one-on-one or shooting a 3. The end.
Yeah.
I think very basic.
Yeah. And it looked like for Inner West that almost had to be Mirko Jeric. Like they were almost deferring to him to be the one to get them out of those situations.
Well, as the game continued, part of me is like, did it have to be him or did it choose for him to be him?
That's fair enough. Yeah. I mean, because we know they've got plenty of other players, especially like they've got Max out there who can definitely create for himself. I mean, we've seen he finished with 12 points, but your point about off-ball movement is the one that really sticks out for me. Is that it was like it's all well and good to want someone to take the lead, but you've got to actually give him something to work with.
Some of the positive signs, so from the Bulls, they shot 11 threes in the first quarter and made 5 from 11. Then of the remaining 17 shots they took in the first quarter, only 3 were inside 8 feet, and they only made 1 of those 3. But at least 13 of their 23 points from this quarter all came from effort plays. They had 7 points from second chance points and fast break points, which I'm guessing were the same. So I didn't count them as 14 points in total. I just thought perhaps their second chance points were all their fast break points. Then they had 6 points from turnovers. So they showed a lot of great signs of being able to capitalize on silly turnovers, loose balls, which I thought kept them in touch and gave them a good chance of winning this game straight from the first quarter. For Illawarra, I mean, they were on defense. They were switching a lot between the guards, but not so much the bigs. That handoff you spoke of Will McDowell White, of Kobe McDowell White. I'd had a good look at that, and this ends up being a continuing theme throughout this game for the Bulls. They don't know what they're doing on a handoff or a pick and roll defensively. A lot of miscommunication, and that ended up being a lot of easy points for Illawarra. Like, I would be tempted to go back and watch this game and count how many points Illawarra scored from pick and roll situations or handoff situations where there's a miscommunication or the person guarding the offensive player receiving the ball was doing the wrong thing. So 3 minutes 42 for Illawarra. McDowell White gets that handoff, and Clark just trails on this handoff. And Breffo ends up guarding Blanchfield in this situation because Blanchfield gives the handoff. Breffo shows for like half a second and retreats back to Blanchfield, understandably, because there's a high chance McDowell White is just going to, pitch it back to Blanchfield off the pop from this handover. But it was such a quick show that Clark is still chasing behind, and that's why the C's just parted open for McDowell White on that situation for the easy layup. And trust me, there are going to be more notes on the Bulls in these situations in this breakdown. It happened again at 2 minutes 34 in the first quarter where McDowell White did a curl cut on a weak side, screen. Clark chases again, another easy layup. But yeah, Illawarra also getting up 10 threes in this quarter. And they 11 threes in this quarter as well. And they shot 6 from 11. So yeah, it was a lot of shots going up in this first quarter. I feel like maybe each team were just trying to get comfortable.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah. I mean, I think that's fair enough. I mean 30 to 23. Don't get me wrong, that's a still a high scoring quarter, but a lot of it, as you mentioned, those early threes just absolutely flying.
And come second quarter for me, lots of similar style of play in the offensive end for Illawarra. They're really good in the sense of you can tell they're always running something, and everyone's always running in the same spot. Sometimes the back screens or the screens on the pick and roll aren't always executed as well as they can be. But there's lots of handoff action, whether it's strong side or weak side. So there's always some kind of movement. And I think that they probably could have used that a lot more to get some easy scores because, as I mentioned, there was so many miscommunications guarding the pick and roll or a handoff from the Bulls. Hawks could have just destroyed them just using that. It's like, for example, again, I think it was 1 minute 15 to play in the second. Blanchfield and Dent in a pick and roll. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. Is it Mirko Derek or Jerick?
I would say it would be. I thought. Well, I've heard both. And I've heard both from pretty reputable sources as well. So, no, I'll have to find that out when I call them on the final game of the season.
Yes, good point. Yeah, but it was this big dunk that Blanchfield gave at 1 minute 15. But basically, it was a pick and roll action between Dent and Blanchfield. They were being guarded by, let's say, Jerick and Breffo. Breffo switched, and Derek didn't switch hard enough to take Blanchfield on the roll, and that just opened everything up.
Yeah, it was.
It was pretty much the theme. A lot of the most successful plays throughout the game. And I just felt like come this second quarter, offensively, the Inner West Bulls were just relying on too much outside shooting. Jerick looked like the only person really penetrating in the half-court offense to get something going. And their defense tended to be quite reactive, sometimes closing out too far, not chasing, not rotating. But that kind of relaxed approach on offense meant that they were able to break Illawarra's 1-2-2 press by pretty much walking the ball up the court and then throwing two passes and getting an N1 plane underneath.
Because the first time Illawarra ran that, they got a steal. And then they tried it again, and Inner West just just like, see you guys. I really would have liked to see in the second quarter Ramon Cow be as aggressive as he was in the first and as he was in the fourth. It was like what worked well for him in the first and the fourth. He took guys on occasionally, and I really would have. And he did a little bit early in the second, but as the game wore on, it kind of fell away until really late in the piece. And it just would have been something to add to Inner West's offense, but Inner West on the defensive end, I also noticed like they were often, maybe not often, but occasionally slow to pick up matchups getting back in transition, which just, left Illawarra a step ahead on multiple occasions. There was one just under 6 minutes to play, left Lockie Dent open for a corner three. There was just one player, like, maybe the player ahead of them didn't, do what was expected. So then they were forced to, go somewhere else and not recognize until it was too late. But I mean, it just goes with the theme of, Inner West not having, correct reads or correct communication on a lot of defensive assignments.
Or no communication. All of those things can be fixed with communication. Who are you guarding in defensive transition? Who are you going to cover? Are you switching? Are you staying? And then being able to, like, this was especially the two-on-two situations, whether to switch or stay in pick and roll or handoffs. That didn't improve at all. Like, so I'm not sure if they weren't paying enough attention to it, if they just weren't talking about it, if people were confused about what the rules are. Because I also imagine that the rules for guarding a pick and roll will change depending who's in that pick and roll. So if Breffo looks like he was guarding Blanchfield a lot of the game, if he's in a 2-on-2 situation where he has to guard Blanchfield, the rules in the pick and guarding the pick and roll in that situation will be different, say if it's like Dent and Moran. But there was just no communication at all. And
it's interesting you bring up Moran in the pick and roll, because then if you look later in the game, he started getting opportunities in that situation.
Oh yeah. I actually put a minute 54 in the second. There's a pick and roll with Dent and Moran. What ends up happening is both of the defenders for the Bulls stay on Dent, and Moran just slips way easily, like down the middle, like down the split line. And that's where I wrote, what are the rules on these pick and rolls and handoffs? Because there's no communication from the Bulls.
Yeah.
They continued to shoot from the arc quite a lot in the second quarter, the Bulls. They had 11 threes and were 5 from 11. 3 of 17 shots were in the paint, but made 1. That's actually my note from the first quarter, so let's ignore that. I was like, that sounds familiar. But yeah, they still relied a lot on the outside shot in the second quarter. But the thing is, though, the halftime score was 44-45 in favor of the Bulls, despite us picking apart their defense in the same way that a Hawks pick and roll did. What do you think the Hawks needed to improve on in that second quarter to have the lead by halftime?
I mean, the Hawks shot, 2 of 11 from 3 in the second quarter, which doesn't help things, particularly as all we've done for the last 5 minutes is completely destroy Inner West pick and roll defense, and yet Illawarra have gone out and shot 2 of 11 from 3-point range, when the pick and roll is clearly, it's clearly going to work for them. So probably just go to the well, boys. We watched it work. It would have been nice to see after going to that press once and getting a steal. It felt like when Inner West ripped straight through it, it felt like Illawarra weren't fully committed to it almost. It was like, we're going to throw a couple of guys up court and we'll see if it comes off again. And it didn't. And honestly, my final note of my second quarter conclusion is Inner West need to be better on D with reads and communication.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mirko Derrick can make this team tick, but he needs other people to take full advantage of it. He's going to attract people.
And going back to your point about Ramon Cowell, he was great in the first quarter. I would like to go back and watch, especially parts of the second quarter, because I don't feel like he got as many touches in the second quarter as the first quarter. I feel like Mirko was always trying to create something. Oftentimes he had to try and create something for himself because their offense was so stagnant. And I mean, credit to the Inner West Bulls, a lot of their shots were under pressure.
Yeah.
From the arc. They weren't open threes like the Hawks were getting at the other end. They were all under pressure in the cylinder with a hand in their face. It was just really lucky that a lot of them were going in.
Yeah, I think if you put the game film, you gave someone the game film and then the shooting percentages and said, which team is which, you probably wouldn't pick it that way.
No, definitely not. 44-45 at halftime in favor of the Bulls. The Hawks, I think, in that second quarter, just resting too much on their laurels from the arc. Probably always believing that despite being down by 1 point, and yeah, like you said, they could have been up by 12. They could have just kept going pick and roll and kicked the door wide open to seal a big lead by halftime. They didn't. They were probably still quietly confident they were able to come back. But that's not going to work for them in the back end of the season. They're going to come up against teams that are going to be hungry to beat them in a final situation. And if the Hawks are going to play with complacency throughout the regular season, it's going to bite them come finals time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, in West are 4 wins for the season, but we know they've got more talent there than a 4-win team. But the teams they're coming up against, especially if you get to, week 2, week 3 of the finals, they are going to be, there's not going to be, we're playing, the team that finished 8th that we've knocked off twice this season. You're going to be playing some real tough teams.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would hate to see them fall in the finals time because they've been kind of under-preparing during the regular season. Because come the third quarter, I could see that complacency coming now on defense for the Hawks, where a couple of times some of the Hawks players, including even the likes of Blanchfield, was caught out overplaying on D, especially in the same spot, having to close out on the wing. There's times where he's gambling for steals or he's overplaying a closeout for a 3, and Inner West were able to capitalize on those opportunities. But then defensive woes continued for the Bulls. I clocked at 7 minutes 56. Some lazy transition D from the Bulls. Easy and 1 play for Moran. Again, just no communication whatsoever.
Was that off the slow roller from Ballinger in transition that just barely got to him and he picked it up?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a really deep catch. No, actually, I think this was actually a Lockie Dent pass from just over the halfway line.
Yes.
Ran deep catch under the basket. And it probably was a bit of a soft foul because the defender was playing catch up. But I mean, come on, guys. That's a long ass pass.
Yeah. And why you play catch up in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That very reactive style of defense and no communication.
Because I had one where Ballinger had this pass and it kind of just got to him and he ran onto it almost and just skipped past the defender who was, a step late, which meant he couldn't quite get into position to, basically stand Moran up, and he got another and 1 off that.
Yeah, so that's right. There were a couple of those opportunities, and the Inner West Bulls do get their own back in the fourth quarter, which we'll get into. But there was a really nice play from the Bulls that I clocked at 6 minutes and 6 seconds in the third, where Moran loses sight of Swanson in the corner, does this lovely back cut and gets an N1 play, which we start to see a little bit in the fourth too from the Hawks.
And that was actually their first points of the third quarter.
At 6:06 by Swanson.
Yes. So they scored 18 points for the quarter, and it took them the best part of 4 minutes to even get on the board in the third quarter.
Yeah, you're right. It really took them a lot of time to get going. And then letting Illawarra score 24 in that third quarter.
Yeah, but I noted that there were a couple of situations early in that early mid-range of the third quarter where Illawarra got some points where, to be fair, they probably shouldn't. There was the Lockie Dent, and the commentators mentioned this as well, Lockie Dent throwing the long pass to Kobe McDowell-White, who was fouled on the 3-point attempt. But Lockie Dent was more open and should have shot it in the first place. And then only a couple of plays later, Moran and Mims got all crossed up right on the top of the arc. And Mims ended up just shooting it because nothing was happening because of how they got their wires crossed. And that was, I think, 6 points out of plays where, they were, in a way, they were kind of lucky to get a shot on either of them. But sometimes you just make things happen and it goes your way.
The other thing I will say about the Hawks is that while they kind of gave the impression that they were settling a lot for the 3-ball this game, which fair enough. If that's what your coach tells you to do, go for it. But you've got to start crashing the boards. Moran was like the only person on, I would say, the majority of outside shots taken that was actually crashing the boards and contesting any offensive rebounds. And again, come finals time, that's not going to fly.
That's exactly what I wrote down. Illawarra, you have CJ Moran and the opposition are putting up better offensive rebound numbers than you are. Make it make
it's
sense.
Effort. It's effort. It's all just effort. Like if we take a look at the box score, the Inner West Bulls actually win the rebound count 46-42. Of that 46, 18 were offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and of Illawarra's 10 offensive rebounds, 6 were Christian Moran.
Yeah, he's just dominating and chasing everything.
7 different players had offensive rebounds for Inner West.
Yeah, it's just effort. But the interesting thing is, like, it's effort on chasing O boards. So why can't they use that same level of effort on defense?
Fair. Very fair call.
Effort is effort. You know what I mean? It's not like some players are going to be better shooters than they are on-ball defenders. That's, that's skill and athleticism and a whole bunch of different skills going into that. Effort is no skill. It's just an internal motivation that can be transferred into any skill. Yes,
100%.
Like, just that math is mathing in my head.
Yeah, that's your elite athlete insight for the evening from Squin.
Yeah, that's right. Effort. I can't coach effort. Okay. I'm pretty sure I've said that in my short coaching career as well, a lot of times. You can't coach effort. Effort has to come from within. I don't have many other notes for the third, but having a look at some of the stats, Illawarra Hawks won the third quarter 24-18. So getting their lead back going into the final quarter.
But we can't talk about the third quarter without talking about Max Clark's 3-quarter court shot.
Oh yeah, take me through that.
The final play of the quarter, Max Clark gets the ball and dribbles it up. Had to get out of a bit of traffic and collect possession. Threw it up from. Well, I think the commentator initially said this will be a half quarter, and by the time he actually got the ball properly, he could only get it off from 3-quarter court and swish. So 68-63, that's another end of course. So with those 4 points that they got right at the end of the first, plus Max Clark's 3, that's 7 points right at the end of the quarter that Inner West got that, Illawarra couldn't come back against in that quarter. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Timing is everything sometimes,
exactly.
But
you take off those 7 points and it's a very, very different game.
But they're kind of the moments as well that made the game like entertaining rather than you were going to get your nerdy basketball fix.
Yeah.
So going into the fourth quarter, we started to see some real glimpses of greatness from the Illawarra Hawks. They upped the intensity on defense. They were more switched on offense. They started to exploit the pick and roll and the handoffs a lot more to get some very early, very easy points, which set up CJ Moran to have 10 points in this. So it's just 10 points in the paint for this fourth quarter. And this is where I was like, this is what I want from Illawarra. I want this high level of professionalism. I want up-tempo. I want organization. And if that means you're going to beat teams by 20, 30, 40 points, then so be it.
Do it.
Just do it. Do it. This is what I want. This is the high caliber that I want from this Illawarra team. But for the Inner West Bulls, this fourth quarter belonged to Andrew Swanson.
Andrew Swanson, 100%.
Oh my God.
I was watching, like, I knew, looked at the box score before the game, I knew what he finished on. And I'm through the first 3 quarters, I'm like, he's got a basket. He gets a basket. It's like, where are the rest of his baskets? Well, here they are.
He was everywhere. He wasn't just making baskets. I think that I counted he had 10 of his 18 points in the fourth, and a lot of them included at least 2 3-pointers. But he was everywhere. He was scoring the points. He was setting up plays. He was hustling on rebounds. Like, he owned this fourth quarter. And I'd be really interested to see where the Bulls would have ended up in this game had Andrew Swanson not taken over in that fourth quarter.
Definitely. I mean, and he just especially with those threes, he just looked like, I belong here. I'm doing this. If I need to be the man that gets us within cooey of winning this game, I'm going to be that man. Which, for a youngster with, an import out there, an NBL player, an NBL veteran out there as well on your team, it's big to do to have that mentality when you have those players around you as a young player.
Yeah, and he inspired me to have this thought from Hamilton, the musical, that I'm going to share right now. Bright young man, yo, who the F is this? Because, pardon the ignorance, but I hadn't watched Andrew Swanson before. I hadn't heard of him just yet until it was announced that he was going to sign for this NBL 1 season, that he was elevated to the NBL 1 men's roster from Youth League. And goodness me, he belongs in the NBL 1.
Oh, yeah. So he's played for New South Wales under-20s a few years ago. But yeah, as you said, elevated to the NBL 1 roster. So yeah, definitely not an experienced player at this level by any stretch.
Lots of effort.
Yeah, to be honest, I only knew of him as his New South Wales under-20s exploits. And just being a name on a roster, not even what he actually does. So yeah, it was really good to watch.
Yeah, lots of effort, just getting 2 feet in the paint, contesting rebounds, trying to make something happen in the fourth quarter, dribble penetration. I mean, he had the 2 assists. He had 18 points, 9 rebounds. He was 58.33 from the field overall. Two of his 9 rebounds were offensive. Makes 101 free throw. That's already a tick in my box.
100% free throw shooter.
100% free throw shooter, 1 from 1. Just really, really impressed with him. So I'm keen to keep my eye on Andrew Swanson's career in NBL 1 because he has a lot of potential. I think he's only 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hold on to him, Inner West Bulls.
Definitely.
But the one play for me that stood out, especially in the fourth quarter, also involved Swanson. At 3 minutes 48, he got a lovely seal inside. So what ended up happening, Swanson and Breffo just did a casual exchange on the weak side when they were playing some half-court offense. McDowell, White, and Dent just lose sight of both of these players because they were ball watching. So in the meantime, Breffo just sneaks behind McDowell White while he's ball watching, gets a catch inside the key. While he's catching the ball, Swanson goes and seals Dent on the baseline side. Breffo dumps it in, and 1 play. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, you kind of wonder where that kind of thing has been for the majority of the game. But I mean, the fact they did it, I mean, it's something to take with you. Good play recognition or defensive recognition from 2 young players, and that's what you say. There's some good young players on this Inner West team that they need to hold on to, and Swanson and Breffo are 2 of them, and Josh Morgan as well, who's just come over from Hills.
Yeah, Josh Morgan is actually a Central Coast kid who's been grinding for a long time since he was a junior. Did spend some time at Hills after he was at the Central Coast. But Breffo as well, I remember when he was playing for Hornsby, he's now moved over to the Bulls. I was really glad to see him even getting a starting spot So this young talent in this Bulls roster is kind of reminding me of the young talent we did see at Hornsby over the last couple of years that Coach Hudson has been able to harness and play a style of basketball really catering to their strengths and seeing a lot of success this year. So I'm hoping that the Bulls will be able to do the same thing with their men's program.
100%.
But overall for me, basically for me, fourth quarter, both teams showed a lot more signs of greatness in this fourth quarter, which is also why I was like wanting a little bit more at the end of this game. Hawks showing their high level of IQ and professionalism. Inner West showing how much grit they have when they put in a little bit more effort and a little bit more smarts and getting the ball through some hands a little bit more in the half court. More of that. Yes. I almost felt like what I saw in the fourth, I wanted to see more of, and asking to play a fifth quarter just so I could see that a little bit longer.
Well, you had enough extra periods of basketball in the Maitland Manly game. Although this one was not far away.
No, it definitely could have been an overtime kind of a game, but I don't think the likes of the Hawks in, Dent, McDowell, White, Blanchfield were going to let that happen. They were just going to seal the game, whatever it took, even if it was in the last 90 seconds, so they could go home on time.
Although it was, considering it was a 9-point game with 90 seconds to play, and Mirko Derrick, he put the team on his back in those last couple of minutes, and they had a shot to tie it. They had a shot to tie it, not to win it, but to tie it. Did Inner West. That last play, do you think Mirko was open in the corner?
Oh, I'd have to go back and have another look. I think he probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you see it?
I think he might have been. Clark got it up, hit the rim, but I think Mirko, I trust him to at least get the shot off over the defender. But we'll see. The players out there on the court, it might have not even been a pass Max could have made at the time.
Yeah, that's true. That may also have been an issue. And it's easy for us to see it from the screen, but when you're in that moment, it's a lot more difficult. You literally have the fractions of time to make decisions.
That's right. As also, one thing I just want to mention is because we literally talked about it during the Sutherland Hills game when it was very close and both teams were on 3 fouls with 5 minutes to play. And we said, well, at least if it gets really close at the end, you won't have to foul a bunch of times just to get the other team to the free throw line. And that is exactly what happened to Inner West in this game. They only had one team foul with 20 seconds to play in the game and just had to keep fouling and wiped, I think, 12 or 13 seconds off the clock by the time they actually got someone to the free throw line. It's kind of tough though. You don't want to foul, but then when you're in that situation at the end, you kind of wish you had fouled a couple more times.
Yeah. I guess it still seemed like a pretty physical game, even from the first quarter where Ballinger just kind of unnecessarily barged Swanson in defensive transition. That was that probably didn't need to happen.
Oh, was that when CJ pushed Swanson away afterwards? It was like, let's just chill.
Yeah, so what happened was basically Swanson comes down and gets this massive defensive rebound over Ballinger, outlets the pass, goes to jog down the other end, and Ballinger comes behind him and just barges him and knocks him over, which come on, guys, this is a little bit silly.
Yeah,
it's a little bit silly.
Boys.
But yeah, come on, boys. But at least there wasn't anything that escalated past that throughout the whole game. So the foul count was pretty reasonable, but there were lots of times where both teams got caught out on defense. And instead of trying to make the play a little bit more difficult for the offensive player, putting their body on the line, trying to chase them down or something, they just let them go.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times where a Hawks player would come down the middle of the key, and then there'd be 4 Inner West Bulls defenders, 2 under the rim and 2 a little bit above, and just see them go past and go, oh, well, Like, just make it hard for them. Just put
Yeah.
some pressure on them. Even if you just run at them and don't make contact, you can still put that mental doubt in their mind. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's end on the positives before I get too frustrated with this. Like, great games from Swanson, great signs from Breffo. Like, I'm chuffed for him getting a spot in the starting position and having the assignment of guarding Blanchfield. Great kind of glimpses of professionalism that I want to see from the Hawks, but love CJ Moran. Love how he is a textbook role player in that 5 spot. Probably my favorite center at the moment in the men's competition next to the Brindabella Beacon.
Oh, that's lovely words. I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear that.
High praise, that is. High praise. Yeah. That is high praise. What are your final thoughts from this game, Lockie?
My first, something I didn't mention at the start, can we fix the live stream scoreboard so it doesn't say nil for the first 6 minutes?
Oh my God. 6 minutes with no score. And I only just realized there's no shot clock either on the and on the live graphics.
Yeah. It was it was not good. But I mean, for Inner West, I mean, getting that close to Illawarra and knowing you have so many things to work on, and probably if you go into practice and, you know that these are the things you can work on and you can get better at them, and they're not things that need a whole off season to improve on. You can just go in and do them. That has to, I mean, they'll be spewing that they lost such a close game to a team so high on the table when they, got it back so close. But, Inner West, plenty of things to learn off from such a close game. And, yeah, look, they're probably not going to make finals. But like I mentioned with Hills Women earlier, take some positive, take this game as a moment, as positive, and use it to go out there and completely ruin someone else's season in the last few weeks. And for Illawarra, I mean, yeah, you came away with the win. And I think they've got the basketball IQ out there to make the slight improvements and probably play recognition and use what works more continuous, more consistently going forward. So, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, Illawarra aren't going to be able to have this game like this in the finals, but I don't think a team with Todd Blanchfield with the C next to his name, or a team that has Patrick Lancaster not having the C next to his name because you've got another leader in it, is going to have a game like that in the finals. And Paddy Lancaster, every time he came on, he was an absolute pest. So good on defense.
Yeah, he was really, really good. I'm glad that you brought him up. He was great on defense, and I would love it if he could have a few more minutes, purely for defensive assignments. Because he was great. He was really, really good.
3 steals in 13 minutes.
Yeah.
And just his on-ball defense in general, and the steals.
Because he's a unit as well. Like, he'd be really hard to get around if you're a point guard or shooting guard and you've got Lancaster on you. He's going to be really hard to get around because he's physically broader and he's really quick.
Well, he is an S&C coach, and I think he is the S&C coach for the team. So,
but some statistics from this game. Top scoring for the Illawarra Hawks was CJ Moran with 24 points, 13 rebounds, and an assist, shooting at 11 from 15 overall, which is 73.33%, and 100% from the free throw line. So an excellent outing for CJ Moran. Kobe McDowell-White ended up with 21 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals, shooting at 63.64 overall. And next in line was Lockie Dent with 17 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals, shooting at 40%. But they were able to have 5 players in double figures, the others being Todd Blanchfield and Matthew Mims, who also provided some very handy minutes from the bench for Illawarra. He had 16 points in just under 22 minutes and shot 4 from 5 from the 3-point line.
That's what he's there to do.
That's what he said to do. To be fair, Inner West also had 5 players in double figures. Top scoring for them was Ramon Cow with 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. And we also had Mirko Derek at 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. So just slyly flirting with a double-double, but only shooting at 37.5%. So not his best day today, but still dishing out 6 dimes. And we also had Andrew Swanson. In 24 minutes and 31 seconds, he had 18 points and 9 rebounds, shooting at 58.33% overall. Inner West Bulls only committing 14 turnovers, Illawarra only committing 11, which was a pretty nice stat. Illawarra shot the ball overall as a team at 48.65%. and 35.14 from the 3-point line. I think a lot of those threes from the Hawkeys probably didn't need to be taken. And for Inner West, they shot overall 41.46% overall from the floor. And from the 3-point line, they shot at 37.78%. So the Hawkeys shot 37 threes. Inner West shot 45 threes.
Yeah, it was
More than
82
half.
3. I think the commentators mentioned that previous game had a total of, I think they shot 45 Illawarra in a game. So definitely getting them up.
Well, that's more than half of Inner West's shots in this game were threes.
That's a lot. That's a lot in a league where we do seem to have a lot of teams that like to shoot threes. That is a lot even by NBL 1 standards.
And only 26 of their total 95 points for the Bulls were in the paint.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, but still lots of positives from both. Hoping that Inner West are able to retain their really great young players and develop them over time and perhaps have them as their marquee players per se. But if we look, if we go ahead and look at the ladder at the moment for the men's competition, Illawarra are still in second with a win-loss record of 11-3 behind the Sydney Comets with 1.6 points percentage separating them. I don't think that math is right, sorry.
But no, that is 100%
close.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. Phew. So very, 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 very tight race. Illawarra Hawks are due to play the Canberra Gunners as well next round. So that's going to be a test. That won't be easy at all. And the Inner West Bulls are currently in 14th place with a win-loss record of 4-10, and they play Maitland next round.
Well, that's a game where they can play spoiler, definitely. Because Maitland are riding a 4-game losing streak now, so that's not a position they want to be in. I mean, so Inner West, but and both teams fresh off very close losses.
All right, so that was our Eastcock game of the week for round 11. It is now time for our very, very special interview. I kind of wish that I read the intro before getting this person into the on-screen studio, something I debated when we recorded this yesterday, but nonetheless, you probably would have guessed who the guest is anyway from the intro. Very few players in the NBL 1 East have such a fantastic playing history. So, otherwise, here it is, our interview with this week's guest, Jason Cadee from the Bankstown Bruins. Our guest today was born into basketball royalty, with their parents already pillars of Australian basketball in their own right. They have played across Australia, donned the green and gold as a junior and a senior, and has earned multiple accolades throughout their career, including NBL Sixth Man of the Year, a Commonwealth Games gold medal, and a FIBA Asia Cup gold medal, only to name a few. From humble beginnings as a towel boy for the West Sydney Razorbacks, our guest overcame a very serious injury to go on to play 15 seasons and 422 games in the NBL before retiring at the tender age of 34. They're now back home playing for their junior club, the Bankstown Bruins. So our guest is none other than Jason Cadee. Hello, how are you?
Thanks for having me. Quite the intro. One of the better ones I've heard, actually.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. We do try and pump up our guests as much as possible, as they deserve to. But what do you want us to call you? Jace, Jason, Cadee? Because to be honest, when we're having a chat, us basketball nuffies, we just refer to you as Cadee.
No, I get everything you just said. So I guess a lot of my friendship group just call me Jace. And then people from, I guess, around the game often just call me Cadee. So I get a mix. For me, it doesn't really matter. They're all correct anyway.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll see how many we can throw in during our discussion today. But yeah, thanks heaps for joining us on East Got Game. And also thanks for coming back to the NBL One East. We'll get into that a little bit later into our interview. But if you don't know about East Got Game in our interviews, we like to bookend our athlete interviews or coach interviews with the same question to start and to finish. And we always ask our guests at the start where and how your basketball began.
It began what seems like a long time ago now, but it began at Bankstown Basketball Stadium. My mum and dad had previously been at the stadium, whether it be coaching or working at the stadium, and my dad played Masters when back in the day, and they used to train on Saturday morning. So I'd be down there running around, and then as you do, some of my friends and the dads were playing Masters too. We'd all run around together, and one day someone asked me to join their team. It was called Aces, the club team, and I said yes. After apparently hating Learn to Play and crying and walking away from Learn to Play, Dad came out to find me playing in an under-10s game once, and the rest is history, I guess.
So, I mean, I imagined it was, straight into it, loved it from the outset, considering, your family's name is synonymous with basketball.
No, well, I mean, it pretty much was. I guess there's a few hiccups early on, but I think as a child, I was a very, I guess, outgoing kid, except in new settings. And so I think the new setting of the Aussie Hoops Learn to Play, whatever it was called back then, maybe I didn't like all the teaching. I just wanted to play, because it turns out as soon as someone asked me to play and it was with all my friends, I was all good and good to go. But yeah, no, very much. Probably took a little bit for me to get used to it.
And did you try any other sports growing up?
Did bits of everything. So through just around the stadium, really, like obviously in that Bankstown area, I did little athletics, played soccer, bit of AFL, even though AFL back then wasn't really a thing like it is now, especially for younger kids, but kind of a mix of everything. Like I remember those mornings, especially over those kind of warmer months, little athletics was on Saturday mornings too. So I'd go from there to basketball back to little A's or something like that. So a bit of everything, and obviously through school as well, but basketball definitely took over kind of as I got through those school years and was more my all year round sport than all those other ones.
What were your best events at Little A's? I'm going to guess sprinting and possibly discus, the way that you can throw a dime in a basketball game.
It actually wasn't discus, although I'm pretty sure from memory I won the discus in year 6 one time. But no, I was a decent sprinter. I was actually better at those kind of middle distance, those half sprinting, half, because I could run cross country too. So the 200, the 400, and the 800 were kind of what I excelled at, because the 400 you could sprint, and it was about being able to that weird mix of sprinting and actually having some stamina as well.
Wow, already doing the cross training to become a professional basketball player, even at Little A's.
I would say it was more just trying to beat people, but when you look back, it probably played a part.
So, did you, you make your first rep team under 12s all the way through?
Yeah, so 12s bottom age. So yeah, basically from bottom age under 12s at Bankstown all the way through to top age under 18. So that was basically my whole journey was at Bankstown and from bottom age through.
And I guess did you get a lot of, as you progress through, you get older and people start, hearing the surname, was there a lot of outside pressure from people just based on who you are?
Yeah, at times. I mean, it's probably one of those things that goes in flows. Like I think I've probably seen a lot of it once you start getting around state teams and things like that. And I didn't make 16s bottom age. So I got cut from that originally, the bottom age 16s. And then I think it was kind of around 18s I started to sometimes hear different things like, oh, Kadee, that's why his last name, that's why he's there, and things like that. And I mean this is honestly as I can say. I think at some point though that only could go so far because I think how I was playing as a junior kind of eliminated some of those conversations as well. So it was one of those things. I never looked into it too much. I just focused on what I could do, and the better I played, the less those kind of conversations could go on. But for the most part, there wasn't really many of those conversations. It was always just, what it's like, other associations, and there's that rivalry within. And then from my point of view of just having that last name, I probably didn't really understand it or probably recognize it as much until I got older. I guess what I was trying to live up to. And basically I got to the point where as long as people think I'm a good person, like I think my parents and family is, that was how I wanted to live it. It wasn't necessarily through basketball accolades or anything like that.
So you mentioned before that at little age you were more of a middle distance and perhaps endurance athlete. And you know what? You certainly had the endurance in your NBL career, clocking 422 NBL games, which I personally just can't get my head around doing something. I mean, I'm sure I've done lots of things in life already 422 times, but probably unconsciously. But I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about what it takes, in your opinion, to be able to play 422 games over 15 seasons, mentally, physically. Like, did you ever get sick of it and want to walk away from it?
I wouldn't say I got sick of it and wanted to walk away from it. There were times I was very frustrated with it and thought certain things were a waste of my time or things like that. It was, when you look back on it, it's like everyone says it went so fast that it feels like it wasn't 15 years. But then when I think back to when I started and the landscape and who was around at that time and all those different things, like it does feel like a long time ago. Like, for example, when I went into the COE to play there earlier in the NBL 1E season, I don't think I'd really been back there for about 10 years. So just even being back there brought back very strong memories from being down there as a kid. But look, it's not an easy journey. I think everyone loves the idea of being a professional athlete. Very few get to live it, and then very few survive in it because it's a dog-eat-dog world, and every year there's someone trying to take your spot from within, from outside. You've got to play through things, injuries, sickness. I've played through so many different things that maybe some wouldn't, but I always found a way to overcome certain little things like that and make sure I was there on game nights. And it's a journey that I'll forever look back on it and enjoy the stories with the teammates or friends and family. And it's just one of those things that I'm very appreciative of now that I've come out the other side, that I got to live that dream of being a professional basketball player.
And do you have a flu game story? A night where you came in feeling absolutely rotten and had a massive one?
Oh, I've got a few of them. There wasn't just one. And the kind of sicknesses are probably ones that we don't need to talk about. I've played through gastro, through the flu, through colds, through spewing, all kinds of stuff. So there was honestly some games where, like, I remember one game distinct. Like there was one game in Adelaide where we got on the road, and I was so crook. I was in Townsville and had the chills, so that tells you where I was at physically. I was like, "Is it cold in here?" And Peaches like, "It's 40 degrees." And I remember like basically that whole day laying in bed trying to get myself to eat like crackers essentially to try and get up and play. No one thought I was playing. I rolled up to the game dead set 30 minutes before because it was just a walk across from the casino and played. So there was so many times where I thought there's no way I could play, but somehow I would just find that hour and a half, 2 hours to just get through it and then go back to being dead on the couch or in bed or whatever it may be.
And what were some of the ways you were able to overcome those frustrations during your career?
I think heavily on who I had around me. I would say I was lucky. Probably some of it just managed to form over time that I was able to have a really strong friendship group. Obviously, I had my family, which was very fortunate in the world that I lived in, that some of the phone calls I could make to family were some of the best phone calls and best advice I could receive. But I think being able to voice what I was feeling at times and get honest feedback, not just what you want to hear. I think what you want to hear can sometimes be a trap and doesn't actually help you. Where fortunately my friendship group that I built up over time was, like I said, some of those guys are still my friends from Aces when I started playing, to some of my school friends at Westfield Sports High were basketballers as well. So a lot of them have actually come around the basketball network. So I wasn't leaving a game, for example, and my mate's been, "Oh, that was great," and it was a piece of crap. Like I was getting honest feedback, whether it was good or bad, from friends and family. So a lot of those frustrations, when I voiced them, I was getting feedback sometimes from the outside. They knew a bit of what was going on the inside, but I was getting honest feedback, which I think allowed me to process things and put things into perspective at times that was needed. And I think that was a big part of my journey and what allowed me to get through certain things that maybe bring a halt to people's careers or whatever it does. It definitely helped me.
And then mentioning, friendships built up over your career, and Squin mentioned some of your accolades, but I mean, what are some of your favorite moments from your career on or off the court?
Oh, there's a lot. Like there's so many things like just having an NBL career. Like I think, like I grew up, like as I said, my dad was the CEO of the West Sydney Razorbacks from I think I was about 7 years old. So like I came through the era where I knew what the NBA was, but I loved the NBL and I just wanted to be in the NBL. And so for me to then go and play in that, like the only thing I really didn't get to do in my NBL journey was play for the Razorbacks because they weren't around. So just that journey alone, being able to represent Australia in multiple different competitions or tournaments, that was a thing. And then things like winning for Bankstown in 2016, like something like that was such a great feeling because it was a journey, not just for me. It was like for so many people who had been around the club who had never won at that level and had played in all kinds of things. So like things like that sit really high up as well. Like there's so many things like that, which I put up there with playing for Australia and doing stuff because it brought happiness to people around me and people that love the club, for example. And it was a place I grew up. So many different little pieces. It's hard to separate one, but if I had to pick one, it would just be being able to be a professional for 15 years and live that dream that I had when I was a kid of living that life and playing in the NBL in front of people and yeah.
And was your early love for the NBL and being around the NBL environment from such a young age, did that help you decide like to go straight into the NBL after the AIS rather than say go to college?
Yeah, I mean, like I just said, and like your kind of question said, it was all I knew. It was all I wanted to be in. So it was kind of like when the whole college thing came up, it was like, convince me why I shouldn't just try and go do this. So then when I started getting offers to be an NBL player, it was like, now, why would I go and do that? I never look back on that like, oh, I should have gone to college. I made the decision that was right for me at the time, and it shaped so much of who I am now. So, would I have loved the experience of college? Sure, but I still wouldn't change the decision I made. And as I said, it was just always what I wanted to do and wanted to be a part of. So I got that chance as an 18-year-old to go and do that, and that's what I did.
What kind of teams were offering you in terms of college teams?
So when I kind of made the decision, I was still at the AIS. So I'd been to the Nike Hoop Summit not long before that, which kind of enhanced the whole college thing. And then Marty Clark was the head coach of the AIS at the time. And so Marty had a massive impact on me in that kind of 12 to 15 months that I was there with the junior Australian team and all that. So he had just accepted a job to go to Adelaide. And Marty had said, I want you to come with me. And then at that same time, when I was kind of trying to figure out my process, and Marty had been really good because he had also pushed me to go to college as well. And I'd kind of voiced it wasn't for me. And then around that exact same time, like Sydney, where I think they just recently come back into the league from that little break they had, the Kings. And so they wanted me to go to Sydney. And then also Gold Coast. I actually didn't know anyone from the Gold Coast other than in the Australian team. I'd played alongside Gibbo and James Harvey and some of those guys that I'd actually were around when I was a kid with the Razorbacks and knew my family. But they had seen me work out and play when I used to travel to the Gold Coast for Christmas holidays or family holidays. I think Joey Wright had seen me work out once, and they came really hard to try and get me. And funnily enough, it was the one I didn't know as much about compared to the rest because I knew Marty really well. Sydney was home, but Gold Coast was just this different. I didn't know Joey at all, and it just seemed like a great situation. That was where I chose.
And was the jump from AIS and junior Australian programs into a fully professional training and working environment like the NBL quite a big jump, or did you feel like you were totally ready for it?
Well, this is the hard one. It was for me because I came off a car accident. So not long after making that decision, that's when I had the car accident. So if you had have asked me pre-accident, like I'd been up to work out with the guys and scrimmage with them, it would have been a jump. Yes, I'm not being arrogant about it. It would have been a jump and definitely an adjustment period. But I felt I was really ready. Like I'd been in the Boomers program. I'd been away with the Boomers. I felt like I was already experiencing men's basketball. So me jumping into the NBL environment, it was going to have its challenges. It was going to have its ups and downs. But I felt like I was really ready for that experience. And then even having been up to the Gold Coast and scrimmaging with the guys that were around and doing things like that, like I was so ready for it. And then the accident obviously changed that whole landscape for a period of time. So it kind of shook up a bit of that confidence that I had and where I felt that I was, because I had to reshape everything. Basically, I had to start to learn to walk and run again. And those things took a bit of time. So it was definitely a big jump in the end. And it was, it was a lot to process.
Yeah, but still a remarkable comeback from that serious accident, especially I think I read that your NBL debut game, you played against the Townsville Crocs and you still came out with 11 points, a relatively short time after that accident too. So very remarkable comeback, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, the progress probably fortunate if it was to ever happen, it happened at that kind of age, because I treated it like an ankle injury or anything else like that. Now it was far from that, but I got back probably 3-4 months earlier than what they expected. And a little bit was just that drive to play basketball. It's kind of like, it's funny how naive you can be to situations, but I was more concerned about would I play basketball again than would I walk or run again. Now I'll probably be asking different questions had I been in that situation now, but I managed. I had a great crew around me. Signing with the Gold Coast kind of justified everything I did and how they treated me with that situation. The support they put around me as a kid, and then when I got there, the weights coach Will Markwick from the physios, everything that I had around me kind of allowed me to rebuild myself. And it took longer than that, me playing that first game, because there came some challenges after I got back playing with just how I felt on certain days, but. I was very fortunate to have great people around me once again when I was there.
And one last, sorry, you go, Locke.
No, yours will be more relevant to.
Oh, I was just going to say, just one last off-scripted question based on what you were telling us about your early NBL career. You mentioned Marty Clark, and I saw on social media recently someone kind of proposing the two men's coaches that have had the biggest impact to that men's program on the COE, and one being Marty Clark. You were there for his reign as head coach of the program. Would you agree with a comment like that?
100%. I think Marty's one of the more brilliant basketball minds I've been around. Like what I learned from him then at that kind of period just stuck with me my whole journey. And not what he does. Like everyone realizes what he does for you on the court, but it's probably also what he does for you off the court. Like he was a hard ass, there's no doubt, but it wasn't for no reason. It was only when it was needed to be, and it was to shape people to be better men and better human beings. And so what he did around me on and off the floor at that time, and then even when I got to play with him in Adelaide, I ended up signing with him. It was his last year there, and they'd had a rough couple of years. So when I got there, things weren't great around the club, and I truly wish that my year there was his second year, because I truly believe that if it was his third year, we would have got everything right. And then Joey came in and we made the grand final that following year. Now, not to say that Joey's presence didn't help that, but I think Marty's such a great coach, and I don't think he got a true, I guess, a proper go at being a head coach in the NBL, because I think he's someone that should be talked about it as being a proper head coach and a pros head coach, because he's such a brilliant person on and off the floor.
And when you signed with Adelaide, that was when everything was kind of wrapping up at the Gold Coast with the debts and
Yep.
the administration. Were you already looking to move to Adelaide, or were you kind of forced? Was that
No,
decision made for you?
No, so I was basically like, that was going on in the background, but as that was going on in the background, I'd already started the process of seeing what else was out there. Just basically, and it was probably only because I knew Marty, to be honest, just that I had a connection with him that had kind of been brought up, and it was just something that I was going to explore. Timing on everything with the Gold Coast, it just all happened at kind of one time. So in a way, it worked out well that I was kind of exploring that option.
And now bringing it back full circle, ahead of this 2025 season in NBL 1 East, Lockie and I have certainly noticed a lot of people returning to their home clubs, and we have dubbed this season as the homecoming, essentially. The likes of yourself, Isaiah Lee back at Manly, Susie Wormsley back at Newcastle. But tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to come back home to Bankstown.
It was probably more just situational based. When I kind of made the decision to retire, which probably wasn't until it wasn't really until really late in the season. So it probably wasn't until that kind of late February period. Now I'd been ongoing for a little while, but when I'd finally made the decision, I obviously have known Curtis, the head coach of the Bankstown, since we were kids, because Soul Sports, his dad's company, were the suppliers for the Razorbacks. So that relationship goes back a long way. And Curtis, when he got the job last year, reached out to me. And I said, mate, there's no chance I'm coming back. I'm going back to the Gold Coast. And just circumstances this year with me retiring, when I took that job to work for Step One, Greg Taylor, who's the CEO and founder, he was really big on me being in Sydney for it. And so just perfect storm once again, just me coming back to Sydney. I kind of wasn't exploring where to play. I didn't really try and, I'm coming back to Sydney. Who's around and who wants me to come play? It was more like, I'm coming back to Sydney. It means I'll play for Bankstown. Even though I retired from being a professional, I still wanted to be around in that setting while my body and the timing allowed. I didn't know what that time was going to look like, which was hard. I'm away here and there for my job. So it was kind of an unknown, but I just said to Curtis, I'll be back. I don't know if I'll play 5 games or 20 games, whatever it may be, we'll find out. And he was over the moon, so it worked out well.
I still remember the Soul Sports logo on the Razorback singlet, just as a
Yeah.
side note.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that, and Adam was with Razorbacks, I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. That is almost like a branded image in my mind from that era of the NBL and of basketball.
It was the same every year. Well, now it changes sometimes year to year, where that never changed. It was the same the whole time.
So it sounds like as well now, based on your stories you shared already about NBL and now coming back to Bankstown, there are some very universal pulls and timing into that help your decisions, and we spoke before as well about playing 422 games, which I still think is remarkable, and doing something for that long for your 15 seasons. How did you know it was time to stop?
I probably didn't. It was probably more. I just got to a point where a decision kind of had to be made in terms of I'd been doing some stuff off the court for about 12 months at that point, and it was probably moving at a quicker rate than I thought it would move. And it got to a point where just basically it was kind of this could be something I could move into after basketball. I'd been around long enough that I'd seen people come and go. I'd seen people start and have 2 years. I'd seen people have 10 years. And you always heard around people's journey outside of sport or out of the sport was hard. And where do they land? Do they land on their feet? Were they struggling? And so once this kind of all just started to develop, it was kind of one of those decisions. It was like, could I play another year or two? Sure. But I've already know what this world looks like. I've already got to experience it. Maybe this is actually my path out, and maybe I actually have to be the one to make the decision rather than, as I've seen many others, they get to this time of the year and no one's called them to come play next year. And it's kind of like, oh, I guess I'm done. And so for me, it was, it just got to the point where I was kind of like, I could play another year. I don't know what that looks like. Would this job still be there if I play another year? Probably not. And I basically said, would I be more disappointed if that wasn't there and I didn't have a chance to explore this other world, or I got to play another year or two? And I just decided that I'd be more disappointed if I didn't go explore this other world. And especially having a young family, being able to transition out is pretty important.
So thankfully that meant back to Bankstown where it all began. And as we mentioned, it is we have dubbed the 2025 season as the homecoming. How important do you think it is for the league in general and individual clubs to have those hometown heroes return to their home club for NBL 1 after having professional careers?
I think it's awesome. I've always thought anyone who can play for their junior club, the NBL 1, as we call it now, has become a bit more business-like and there's a bit more movement. And I've always tried to make sure wherever I played, I treated it like it was me playing for Bankstown, because I understand kind of what the progression is through those playing at Bankstown my whole junior career. Like, I followed the ABA as much as I followed the NBL. And I used to love going down on Saturdays and watching those guys play and running around with my friends. Like, that was a big period of my life. And so, when I played in Adelaide for the West Adelaide Bearcats, and I played in Brisbane for the Capitals and then Gold Coast, like, I treated them all like they were my Bankstown. And it was really about, it's like what basketball is supposed to be, like, before business and money really got involved, like those little close-knit stadiums where people can dead set reach out and touch you, and you can hear the person in the first row as you can in the 10th row, and you can kind of really be like, your game finishes and everyone's on the court. Like, there were my memories growing up. I love the bigger picture stuff, but like, that's like where real memories happen. And so for me, being able to beat all those clubs, I just think now when you actually come back to it and you are there and people since you're a kid, and your Isaiahs and people like that who play for clubs they've grown up at, no matter what their journey, it carries a lot of weight, and it's pretty special for the individual, but also for the people that have been around and been part of their journey. Because that's the one thing you forget is, to your Marty Clark question before, there's so many people at that stadium that probably felt like they were with me for 15 years playing in the NBL, watching all my games, all because of where I grew up. And so I think that's one thing you forget when you go on these journeys of being a basketball player.
And I think it's also important for the youngsters at the club to see the players that have become big names come back and see them in the flesh, and recognize that they're more than just someone they see on TV running around, every weekend, and get a real tangible idea of what they can be.
And you probably forget at times, like I don't see myself in that kind of light. But it's probably the truth. Like just me being around the stadium, having gone from being one of them. Like the thing is, people can't say at that stadium I wasn't once one of those kids. Because I was once exactly one of those kids training on a Tuesday, Thursday night, whether it be in under 12s, 14s. I was once one of those kids, and I'd been on this journey, and here I am back with the club because that's what the club meant to me growing up. It helped shape me as a basketball player. So I think that's where the relevance really is high, because when you can walk into a stadium and be like, yeah, I was once here as a kid and I did all of the things you were doing just in a different time, it carries some real weight, that's for sure.
And I mean, we love seeing this Bruins team kind of, develop an identity and a culture. They bring back a lot of players each year, including, bringing back Andre Walford as the import and Hayden Blankley, who's originally from Blacktown. They've really become big parts of the club. So just tell us about this team and what you feel your role is with the Bruins this season.
Well, it was kind of a difficult one too, because a lot of, I guess, whilst I normally I come into this environment and it's my off season and I just treat it to get better and I enjoy those environments. And I've always, whenever I say treat it as my off season, it just means I'm ticking over for the NBL season, but I'm still getting ready for that whilst playing basketball. And I used to use it as a real driver in my off season, where now I'm trying to figure out this whole other world while still playing, so that my priorities have shifted a little bit more than normal. So for me, it was I probably underestimated the impact having this life of business and learning this whole world that I've got to learn now, the impact that would have on playing basketball, where basketball's been the priority since I was about 8 years old to now being third or fourth on the list. So when I was coming back, I just wanted to be a real stable piece of that could help. I wanted to help on where's Andre Wolford trying to go? Where's the young Jesse Edwards or the Charlie Macbeths? Where are they trying to end up? How can I help your journey? That's essentially what I was thinking. And why I help your journey, hopefully we can win some basketball games. Obviously what they did last year, they brought Bankstown back to having some substance and relevance about it. I'd say for a number of years there, Bankstown, for such a big club, wasn't a big club in the seniors. It just kind of died away for years there. And so what they were able to do last year was actually bring back Bankstown's in the finals, which is a big thing. And then I think what this year's happened is we took another jump up in terms of we had some players, so we had some names, I guess, to add to the list, which brings on expectation. And now when you have expectation, it's a whole different world of things. When you're playing and no one really, I guess, treats you like equal level or whatever you want to call it, or they I guess, underestimate you, you can really snag some wins because you just get in and play hard and things tick over. Where I think with the names we kind of have added, especially with myself and Jalen, it adds a target, and that's a whole different ball game. And if you haven't experienced that before, it can chew you up pretty quick. So I think we've been finding our way throughout this year, and it hasn't always looked great. We're still trying to find our way, which is probably why our results are where they are. But I'm just hoping that some of the things we try to put in place will help us just kickstart a little run in this back end as we lead into finals, and hopefully we can get in there and make some noise.
All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, we like to bookend our interviews with the same question at the start and at the end. And we like to end our interviews with asking, who is Jason Cadee off the basketball court?
A pretty relaxed person, honestly. Like, I feel like I am what you see most of the time. Like, I'm always looking for someone to talk to and talk a bit of crap with. I often just get around now, obviously spend a lot of time with my family, but anytime I can spend time with family or friends, or that's kind of where I feel like I'm at my best, when I can just do that. And then normally with a bit of sport in the background. So I'm pretty relaxed. I'm pretty easygoing. And that's what I've been basically my whole life. That's never changed.
So those friends you spoke of earlier that you grew up with in the Bankstown Bruins club and association, do they still come and watch you play NBL 1 now?
Some of them do, yes. Some of them obviously have their own lives going on where it's not as easy. But yeah, no, a lot of them, like as I said, like grew up and played through my whole juniors with them. So no, if they're not there at the game, they're definitely watching it online. So no, it's still one of those things. I'm sure they'll be happy the day I retire. They don't feel like they've got to keep up with how I play or where I play.
And because when you announced your retirement earlier in the year, you were quoted on NBL.com to say, you can now look to the next chapter of your professional life, and it's an exciting time for my family and I. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about what that professional life means? Because you mentioned earlier you've got a job with Step One.
Yeah. So basically, I met the founder of it about 4 years ago, and it just became like it was more of a friendship, to be honest. Like it all started through the product. I'd received it, liked it, wanted more of it, essentially. Me and him kind of just became somewhat friends and would always talk about sport and different things. And then, as I said, it turned into something else, which turned into him saying, "Hey, can we do this?" And then it just kept steamrolling. And so taking on that job was one of the scariest things I've probably decided to do, because I was leaving, I guess, something I've loved, something I do love, basketball. I was stepping outside my comfort zone, which is scary for anyone, but it was something I felt was necessary, and in a way, how can it not feel so right when I end up back in Sydney and back at Bankstown, which, if I'm being honest, I wasn't probably going to end up back here after my career. It probably would have been back on the Gold Coast. So just somehow me taking this job and stepping into this world where I'm handling athletes and partnerships and a bit of product development with such a great company and such a big company as it expands overseas, it's also led to me being back at Bankstown, which is a pretty cool thing for me. So no, it's exciting times. It's a lot. It's hard work, obviously, when you step into a different world trying to learn everything, but I'm really enjoying the process so far.
Well, the good thing is that you're still involved with basketball and athletes around you. So I guess your supply of potential athlete endorsements or poster boys or something is never going to dry up.
It definitely helps. It definitely helps. At least when you talk to people, I can talk from a person who was an athlete somewhat, so I have an understanding of what they're going through and how busy they can be at times. But also learning the business side and seeing how busy some other people are. Athletes really aren't that busy.
Yes, well, you heard it here first, straight from someone who's had a long-standing professional career. Athletes aren't that busy. I love that quote.
I think you forget, because you're always getting ready for something. So that's the part where you think you're busy, but you're just getting ready for games, for trainings, you're recovering, you're rehabbing. So it never stops being a basketball player. But when you're sitting at home and get to play PlayStation or hang on the couch for hours, that kind of relaxation time getting ready for a game, it's pretty good.
That's true. That's a good point, actually. I think people can underestimate the around game time stuff. Like you said, getting ready to go to training, doing your prehab, and then your sessions 2 hours, and then doing your recovery, your nutrition, trying to find some kind of leisure in between. There is a lot of stuff like around the actual practice, the lifting, and the game.
I said to someone, I think it was Julian Kazoo earlier in my career, he goes, "You're just always on a countdown." And it's true. Like you're on a countdown to preseason. Then from preseason, you're on a countdown to games, and you're on a countdown to the season. Then trainings, like you're just counting down all the time between games and trainings. And so your life is just constantly ticking over. And as I said, like sometimes you can be busy, but there's also days where you genuinely need to sit on the couch because you're so sore from everything going on and things like that. So it's a lot, but it's a lot in its own right. Everyone has different challenges as they go through their life as well.
Didn't have those fancy recovery boots back when you first started your career either. So you couldn't be in those recovery boots playing. What do you play on PlayStation, actually? Because we've had quite a few guests in the past who are also gamers. So we like to suss out what everyone's playing at the moment.
Bits of everything. I still play a bit of Fortnite and Call of Duty. And then often just dabble around all the sports games, just playing different things and that. I always find myself in the sports games. I like playing the manager mode where you go through and make trades and do different things and build up your own rosters, whether it be on FIFA or NBA. I always get lost in those games too.
I think Lockie has a bit more experience with A, gaming, and B, the manager side of gaming.
Definitely, yeah, I have. Yeah, I have not installed Football Manager on this computer because I will lose so much of my life to it if I get back into it.
No, they're addictive, and it's like you just want to build up and do different things. No, I fully get it. I get lost in it so quick.
I just did a WNBL fantasy draft for a friend's podcast. And even that, it took me probably like 2.5 days to understand the rules while everyone's already started their drafting. It just goes over my head. I can't do those.
Stuff. I did an NBA one once, and that was it. Because all I cared about was someone's stats. And it was driving me crazy. I was getting so annoyed at someone's stats. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, it's actually annoying me how people were playing. Because I was like, nah, I can't do this. This is ridiculous.
I think I gave up on fantasy NFL when my opponent had the third string quarterback and he went off for 4 touchdowns in a game. And I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, see, that would drive me nuts too.
Any chance that you'd be interested in broadcast or commentary when you're ready to stay involved in basketball but not play?
Yeah, no, I've been asked a million questions like that. Coaching, commentating. I don't know. I'm open to anything. Obviously not coaching at the moment in terms of NBL or anything, like being an assistant. Just part of my decision was to almost take myself away from basketball for a little while and experience this whole world of business and learn. I think sometimes getting away can also help you if you ever do come back. And most likely at some point in my life, I will come back to basketball in a bigger regard. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, timing right now for me, just having time to focus on this new job and also just be around my family is my first priority. And then as things start to unfold in the back end of the year, we'll see. But yeah, commentary could be a good way to stay involved. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you on East Got Game. Thanks for making time for us to be our guest this week, and especially a big thanks for coming back and playing in NBL 1 East for your hometown, Bankstown. Currently sitting in 11th position with a win-loss record of 6-8, but we have faith that the Bruins can finish out the season strong and crack that top 6.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I think one thing to notice, especially about the East is, and someone said it the other day, I don't know who, people like yourselves and Love of the Game and all these people around the East that are making content and producing highlights and weekly shows, like I think it actually translates and it helps people. Like it's a real thing. It helps people come and want to play in certain leagues because it helps them get noticed somewhere else. And I think it's been pretty impressive because I don't know a lot of leagues actually get the magnitude of what this one is doing with people like yourself. So keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thank you kindly. We definitely will now. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, East Got Game fans. That was our interview with Jason Cadee that we recorded last night. Obviously, lots of teams have team training on Tuesdays and Thursdays and can't always make our live feed. But thanks for joining us again for another episode. And while Jason very kindly shared so much of his wisdom, we forgot to tell him the most important thing about being back in NBL 1 East, and that is don't sleep on the East.